Welcome to Amagentz Podcast, the podcast that brings you thought-provoking discussions and captivating stories from around the world. I'm your host, Captain P, with my fellow co-hosts, Tinas and Joe. On this show, we explore a wide range of topics, from technology and sport to art, culture, and everything in between. Our goal is to inform, entertain, and inspire you, our amazing listeners. So whether you're driving, working out, or just relaxing at home, grab your favorite beverage, sit back, and let's dive into the captivating world of Amagentz Podcast. Always make sure to subscribe and review the show on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to follow us on social media. On our Facebook page at Amagentz Podcast for the latest updates. Also on our YouTube channel at Amagentz Podcast. Thank you for joining us, and let's get started. Hello, welcome to another episode of Amagentz Podcast, episode number 5, week number 5. Excited for another week. Many things happening in the world of current affairs, sports, lots of sports around. Recently had the FIFA Women's World Cup final, which was an exciting game. A lot of buzz around the country with the World Cup. Premier League back in action. And also current affairs of Niger, things happening in Niger, changes. And also the Zimbabwean election coming on this week. So we'll give our predictions at the end of the show. So listen right to the end when we'll individually give our predictions on the Zim election. So Tinas, Joe, how are you gentlemen? How are you brothers?
Great. Good to be here, man.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
You guys had an awesome week. Watched the Premier League, watched a few games. Another disappointing weekend for some gentlemen in this in this show.
My weekend was fantastic. Liverpool did well. Huh?
Tina's, me and you are on the losing end, so we can't laugh at each other. So we'll let Joe smile. We can see his big smile there, enjoying the Liverpool victory.
I thought both of you were migrating to Man City.
Very disappointed, man.
Very disappointed. Right, so let's get into it. Let's get into the Premier League. Week 2 of the Premier League. We had some interesting results. Of course, you know, the standard bearers of the league at the moment, Man City, beat Newcastle 1-0 in a top-of-the-table clash. Disappointing result for my team, Man U. Utterly outplayed. I'll do another weekly rant. Since I did a rant first week, I'll jump into that. You don't laugh, Tinas. West Ham beat Chelsea. even losing. Aston Villa came back from their 5-1 drubbing. They beat Everton 4-0. I think Everton will be relegation fodder again this season. And the last game of the week was Arsenal versus Crystal Palace. Arsenal won with a Martin Odegaard penalty, 1-0 victory for Arsenal. So let's get into it. Let's get into the games. Let's talk some of the games. Liverpool. Oh, Joe.
Yes.
Joe is the only man smiling in our crew today. Liverpool won 3-1 against Bournemouth. And looking at the stats, this weekend was a bit of a red card frenzy. 5 games with red cards.
Yeah.
The refs were a bit trigger happy, refs and VAR. Lots of red cards. Even Liverpool had a red card.
Yeah, McAllister, yeah.
Yes.
He got a red card, yeah.
And let's not forget to acknowledge Brighton. Just continued where they left off last season, flying high, top of the table at the moment. 4-1 victory over Wolves. Wolves, which gave Man United a hard time. So yeah, let's talk. Let's talk about the teams. Of course, Joe will give you a time to celebrate. Just close. Yeah, you were talking about McAllister.
Yes. No, he got the red card. But during the game, Luis Diaz, did you see the scissors goal, my friend? That was fantastic. The first goal. Did you see Tinas? Or you
managed to watch most of the games? I was disappointed from the win-up that we had with. Come on, what is that? Yeah? Chelsea, what is that?
Yeah, the Liverpool one. I saw the highlights of the Liverpool. Liverpool is playing well at the moment. Unfortunately, they didn't win last week, but they are playing well, back on form. It's a new midfield, and it looks very high octane, high energy. How you can find a Klopp squad. Man City, we go to Man City. Man City was just professional, absolutely professional.
Yes.
Newcastle couldn't lay a glove. They could not lay a glove. Just being passed.
What can we say about the Newcastle squad, though? Now that they've faced the best of the best, what can we say? What do we see so far? I remember we had an insight into what their league could look like, but what can we say?
Look, I think they're a strong team to lose only 1-0 against Man City. So they are strong enough. I think they just need a clinical striker. I don't know about Isak. He moved from the La Liga, but I believe they'll be in the running. Look for the top 4. I don't know how, when the Champions League starts, how they manage the Champions League. As I said in our prediction episode, if you want to get that on our YouTube and on our podcast on Spotify, Apple, we spoke about that in our prediction. So we don't know. We'll see how we go. They beat Aston Villa, who's in the middle of the pack, where they are supposed to be. They resoundingly beat them. Then they've played the top team, and the top team has just given them a masterclass. I think Man City didn't even leave third gear from the match which I watched. They were so comfortable. Yeah.
The match was almost 50-50 in terms of the possession of the ball, and you see with Newcastle, I think they're quite good because with their passes and accuracy, it wasn't as bad, and like you said, Leslie, they hold them up 1-0, which is good for for Man City, because Man City is on fire, man.
Yeah, no, they're a strong team. They're on strong team, man.
How many goals did Haaland score?
Nah, I think let's see who scored. I think this one was...
No, that was Alvarez, yes, Alvarez, yeah.
The World Cup winner, Alvarez, who scored. I think Haaland is on a bit of a dip of form at the moment, but I think he'll come back. First game, he scored 2 goals. In the Super Cup, he didn't score. I think that's 5 finals without him scoring for Man City. So we'll see how it goes. And then, let's lead to the dreary section now. I'll start before we go to Chelsea.
Yeah.
Right? Anyway, Man United, man, what a woeful performance that was. Absolutely disappointing. From the first 30 minutes, Bruno Fernandes missed an open header. Marcus Rashford is not looking happy. Man, I don't know. I really don't know. Casemiro looks like he's enjoyed a few, a bit of the carnival experience in Brazil when he went back home.
He got a good refreshment.
A good refreshment. He can't look. He's not the same. But usually it takes him 3-4 games for him to warm up. And you've got Mason Mount. Mason Mount looks like a headless chicken on the team, just running around.
Can we talk about that? I was watching on Instagram a podcast of some of the guys were reviewing that as well. They're not happy with Mason. Apparently, they see him as becoming a flop. What is your take?
He's a luxury signing. He's not a signing. To me personally, he's not a signing who we needed. Yes, we needed someone who can link up the play. Of course, he's a better passer, better footballer than Fred and McTominay, but he's not physically built enough to play the box-to-box number 8. We should have made Amrabat a priority signing, or Gravenbach, who's in Bayern Munich, someone who can run the floor from the top of the box when they're defending. They can come in with a late run like a Roy Keane, because Bruno Fernandes is not going to do that. Bruno Fernandes is not disciplined enough to do that. And Mason Mount, he's a luxury, to be honest. In Chelsea, he was well protected. He had Kante and he had Kovacic. So he was well protected, right? And obviously as well with Chelsea, they played a back 3. So it was basically a back 5. So he could free roam and play however he wanted. But now here, he has to track back. He has to play the Kovacic role. And I don't think he can play that Kovacic role, man.
Yeah. So, Captain P, what happened with Martinez? What was he doing?
The own goal. I don't know what he was trying to kick with. He was kicking with the star. I don't know what he was doing. Look, it's at the moment. It's a disaster class at the moment. To be quite honest, it's an absolute disaster class.
It's very entertaining to see you humbled like that.
Look, it happened last season. Last season, at least, were better than last season. The first two games we had 0 points. We're in the relegation battle. But now we've got 3 points. I think, look, it's disappointing that we're having another slow start to the season. Man City's already on 6 points. If you give them a 3-point lead, man, they're already running away. So you try and catch up, unless they have a massive blip. Maybe the Kevin De Bruyne injury might affect them in the December-January period. He's out for 4 months, because 4 months that leads us to December, and then he has to start to do fitness. So he might be back late January, early February. So that Kevin De Bruyne, so the season is a bit open with that loss of Kevin De Bruyne. So we're not panicking at the moment. We have Nottingham Forest on the weekend, and then obviously we've got our whipping boys Arsenal the week after. So it's going to be it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks. So let's see how we go, man. Let's see how we go. Yeah, Tina, as you were laughing, let's lead on to Chelsea, man. Moses Caicedo, $115 million for that.
Bro. Absolutely disappointed. I mean, yeah, we could argue and say it's the beginning of the season. The guys haven't settled, but you know what? The amount of money that was spent on that squad for it not to gel well is just not acceptable. Like, look, they're playing a very good passing game. They do, but the biggest issue that has always been at Chelsea is they don't have finishes. They're not finishing. Unfortunately, we took on people like Sterling. We thought maybe Sterling could kind of help us with those runs that he usually did in Man City, but it doesn't seem to help. He did, do a few runs into the box, or one which led into a penalty, and other one which he did from the right, which wasn't, converted into a goal. But man, I just don't know. I don't know what they're trying to do. I don't know what sort of outcome this is going to have on us, but we need the confidence to start off the season.
Is the Reece James injury affecting the team? Because Reece James is a big outlet for your attack.
Possibly, or even just the matter of confidence in the squad, having him around, that also does play a part. Obviously, that he's not in, and those sweeping crosses that he does. All of that was missing from the game. So obviously that also comes into play. But I'm generally not pleased. Not pleased. We expect more. They spend a lot of money. They changed the whole squad, and in doing so, we would think they were doing the right thing. They have a lot of good players, but I think Pochettino has a lot to prove.
But for $1 billion spent in 18 months. Yeah, you'd expect a bit more from that Chelsea team.
You would expect a very elite squad. That's what I can say. A very, very elite squad that is not willing to lose games the way they're losing games. 3-1. Come on. To Aston Villa. Come on.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No. I wanted to say it happens. It happens. It doesn't matter how much you spend, but it's part of the game.
It's slowly beginning to think like they're just playing money in Chelsea now,
And look at their other big signing. What's his name? Mudryk. He's not even starting.
Exactly.
And he was a big signing.
And Caicedo is the new guy, is the one who gave away the
even Cucurella. Cucurella was a big signing from Brighton. He's not starting.
There's even talk that he might be leaving.
So, and even if you look at that bench, this for $1 billion spent, there's nothing which pops out to say, whoa, they can bring on a game changer from the bench. You've got Moses.
In other avenues, the people who are arguing that it's a young squad and they're going to have, top-notch players in the next coming years. But look, man, football is not about tomorrow. It's all about today. It's all about the loss to Aston Villa. It's about the loss to Man City. It's about the loss to Man U. Like, we can't take that.
No, look, I think we made a comment on our Twitter page about the midfield. Chelsea's midfield, compared to Real Madrid, they're all young, all in their early 20s. Those will be the top two midfields in the next few years.
Well, like I said,
It's
Those next 2 years, we need them right now. We need them right now, man. We need them. We need to resurrect, the banner.
Go ahead, Joe. You wanted to say something?
Now, I wanted to ask about the coach. What do you think, Tinas? Is he the good match for this season, or he's overstayed his welcome in Chelsea?
Pochettino?
Yeah, Pochettino. Yeah.
No, he's just started. Look, man, I liked Tottenham when he was there. I think he managed to make a very good squad. They gelled very well. I think that was like the pinnacle of Tottenham Hotspur when he was there. Hopefully he can replicate in Chelsea, but it is going to take some time. But you see, this is what I'm saying. Like, we don't have the time to be doing all sorts of things, that don't equate to wins.
Yeah, because why I'm asking, because he's got pure talent in his lineup, so he should bring some outcome.
With time, yes, but you see, Chelsea has proven that they don't like coaches that take time to develop a squad into a winning killing machine. They don't like that. They're very quick to let you go. The likes of what's his name, who came from Brighton, we call him Harry Potter.
Graham Potter, man.
We call him Harry Potter. Graham Potter. You see, the problem is that guy had a winning formula for Brighton, but it took a bit of time for him to fully formulate. He tried to do the same with Chelsea, but nobody gave him the time and day. So Pochettino doesn't have that time and day to say, oh, listen, for the young players, I want to build them to become this in the next 2-3 years. He has this season to prove that he's worth to be there where he is. And if he doesn't do that, then I'm sure heads will be
He's getting a boot.
Yeah. Heads will be flying. Definitely.
All right. So again, we're already in week 3 of Premier League. Week 3, man. Our time flies by, man. So again, week 3, we've got a couple of another big game for week 3. We've got Newcastle hosting Liverpool at St. James's Park. That'll be the big Super Sunday clash. We've got Man United hosting Nottingham Forest. Hopefully they can bounce back. Arsenal have got a London derby with Fulham. Chelsea have got the newly promoted Luton Town. So maybe Pochettino can bounce back in that. And then another good game, winners from the weekend, Brighton and West Ham facing each other. And then we've got Everton at Wolves. Again, I believe that's relegation for the battle. Tottenham going to Bournemouth. Again, we'll see how that goes as time progresses. So the season is hitting up week 3. Let's get in. Let's see how everything goes, man. So sticking with football, let's talk about the recent FIFA Women's World Cup hosted in the great Oceania country of Australia. Guys, managed to watch the World Cup final?
You want me to be honest?
No. Look, if you didn't watch it, maybe you watched the highlights. That's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, I did watch the highlights, but I got to watch the highlights because of the hype that the Women's World Cup had, especially with the Matildas. They made me watch parts of it because of the excitement in the sports club. But
look, as I said, congratulations to Spain. Spain, won the World Cup. Both their men won in 2020 in South Africa, and now they've won here in Australia. So I think Spain likes to play in the Southern Hemisphere World Cups, eh? They've both won them in the Southern Hemisphere. So good on them. It was a pure Spanish performance. Held the ball, passed the ball, tiki-taka. And 1-0, man, clean victory. England, thank God the English didn't win. We're still hearing about 1966, 2023. So thank God the English didn't win. So it was a good performance. Congratulations to Spain. And kudos to them for winning the Women's World Cup. So we've got a few stats, which have come out from this World Cup, Australia and New Zealand hosted the FIFA's World Cup for the ages, as they say. 1.95 million fans through the stands. So that's 1.9 million people in the stadiums. Over 160 goals. Over 750,000 visitors at fan festivals. The most watched program in Australian TV history. right? And the first senior FIFA tournament to be hosted in Oceania, and the first Women's World Cup with 32 teams. So they've already matched the men. Men have got 32 teams. I think men is going to increase, I think, at the FIFA World Cup in 2026. I think they've expanded that. But look, women, have got 32 teams there. It was a good performance, some resounding victories. Let's dive into the Matildas fever. Living here in Australia, we're seeing yellow jerseys all over. I thought I was at a Triple C rally, but it was all the Matildas.
Oh,
It was a Matildas fever. And look, they finished fourth, but I think they really made women's sport go to another level in the country. Let's talk a bit about that, about the Matildas fever from this World Cup.
Yeah, yeah, the very big impact obviously of the sport, obviously for the younger women out there who also want to play the sport. This is a very, very open cut opportunity for them to grow the sport. They've done well. We have the Olympics that's coming up in 2032 in Brisbane. I'm sure again that's another platform they're going to have to again grow the sport even bigger. They use this opportunity to spearhead. So I see football growing for women. I see football growing. Whether that will help the men's part as well, because obviously our men haven't really done as good. Obviously, there's more competition when it comes to the males out there. Not to take anything away from the materials, but we do know that male sport has its own.
that's a quite sensitive area there, given that some are already taking advantage of the fever that's happening at the moment. I was going through, coming through the news, and I saw that, there are some people who are already complaining that the female athletes getting, less money than their male counterparts. Like, FIFA, like in this article that I was reading, the advertiser, they say FIFA will only hand out a total of 170 million in prize money for the Women's World Cup, far less than 680 million for men's tournament. And they are complaining of the, wage gap.
Well, that's a very big conversation that's been had around the world, really. Even the American squad has the same thing where they want equal pay. But I think the biggest thing that comes down to following, how much does the Men's World Cup bring in terms of revenue itself? How much does it bring in terms of viewers itself?
But in this case now, the female soccer brought in more viewers in the Australian context.
Yeah, but in the Australian context, yes. In the Australian context, they performed well. So as we come back to the Matildas, yes, we know the argument of equal pay, the debate. We all know that the men's sport has been there for years. I think I alluded to England winning in 1966. There wasn't a Women's World Cup in 1966. So for us to rush to say we want equal pay, it has to grow to a certain level where, major sponsors are sponsoring. I think this World Cup was being sponsored by Xero, the accounting firm. The Men's World Cup, you've got Budweiser, you've got Gillette, you've got all these major conglomerate brands,
Nike, Adidas,
fighting to sponsor to have their brands out there for the Men's World Cup. Not taking away from the women, they've got 32 teams. The Spanish team, even if I was on the pitch, I'm a rugby player. If I was on the pitch, they would have made me run around in that midfield like a madman because of the way they were passing the ball around. So some of the women's sport has improved dramatically. Even the normal powerhouse, the USA, they were well beaten from the group stage all the ways because everyone else has improved. Everyone else has gone to another level. So, I was in the South Bank area in Brisbane this past weekend before the third playoff match between Australia and Sweden. And you could see the Matildas fever, parents with young girls buying the Australian jersey, even men wearing the Australian jersey with their partners. There was that, togetherness which brought the country together for the Matildas, for the next generation, for parents with young ladies. They might want to enter into that sports field. It might not be football or soccer, as they call it in other parts of the world. It may be another sport which has increased that woman's participation. I think in other places which you've been, you've seen those yellow jerseys flying around like hotcakes.
Yeah. Yeah. But I should add on to, I know you want to spin it off on a positive note.
It's a discussion. That's why we love Amagentz, man.
The argument is always going to be there, bro. Like, I wanted to give an example of the women's national team. I think it was a year or 2 years ago, when this whole conversation started about equal pay, and they took it to their matches, and some women were actually outside. I was watching this video. I think it was on YouTube or somewhere. And this, they were sort of demonstrating and saying, "Oh, equal pay," just before a match. And the team goes in there and they're playing a friendly match with some young boys or some small team, men's team, and they get thrashed 11-0. And that just goes to show you, like, listen, there's no competition here. The levels of sportsmanship that's in male sports is different from the level of competition that's in women's sport. We can't even talk about the amount of men who play football versus the amount of women.
I'll give you an example of Sam Kerr.
Yeah.
She's a complete athlete.
Yeah.
If she competes with other men, she can beat other men. She's well versed in cricket. She's a Chelsea women's team member of your team, which you love. You love her. Sam Kerr, and she won you a trophy. I think, was it last season, the FA Cup? Yeah. So there are some, women who deserve that equal pay. You know what I mean?
And I think I was actually reading something that was saying she's the world's most paid female athlete in that team. I think total revenue, including endorsements and whatever, she's looking like $3 million per year. And then the rest of the team in the Matildas, I think the comparison was around 300,000-400,000 for the next person who's coming after her. So obviously it does help her that she's playing, the FA, the English Women's Premiership, and obviously there's a lot of sponsorship that she has managed to garner. But the fact that sponsorship is not willing to support anyone and everybody else shows you the pull that the sports has.
Yeah, look. As I said, we're not disputing that about the pool, about But as I said, here in Australia, based on the Matildas debate, is the most watched sporting event. It's even beaten the 2000 Olympics, right? It's beaten the NRL Grand Final. It's beaten the AFL Grand Final, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you might say the population is a bit smaller. It's 20 million or whatever, 23 million where we are at the moment. 11 million watched the Matildas semi-final game. 11 million Australians watched that, right? Obviously, it cannot compete on a world stage because of time difference. When it was on in the UK, some of the games, people would be working. In the US, they'd be sleeping. So obviously, it didn't have that worldwide appeal. But is it talking in the context of the local spectrum? Let's not talk. Here we're looking at the bigger picture because I think we were the leading candidates of equal pay.
Oh, but how many people actually watch the men's English soccer league here in Australia? Like how many?
But no, look, you get to 11 million built up. This was 11 million one time.
Yes, so it's a one-off thing. It's a one-off thing.
No, Joe, I need to respond first because the example which he gave doesn't really make sense because the Premier League is played at 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 12 midnight, right? And this game was played at 7 p.m. So your comparison doesn't really make sense. And plus as well, this game was on free-to-air television. Not everyone has got paid subscription to watch the Premier League like what we do. No one has got paid subscription to watch UEFA Champions League like we do, because we have to follow it and comment on it on Amagentz. So I'm talking about the whole spectrum where you've got it on free-to-air television. Whether it was hosted in Australia, if the UK hosted it and they did free-to-air, it would have been the same scenario. The women's game has enlightened people. Yes, I'm not talking about the debate of equal pay. I will not agree to equal pay if you're not bringing equal revenue. Let's not get that done.
Okay, thank you. Hey, that's where we agree.
That's where we agree. I'm not talking about equal pay here. We're talking about the way it has boosted the morale of women's sport. If it's boosted the women's sport, then if it grows to revenue of 2 billion, like what the men's World Cup does, then they should get the equal pay, right?
Yeah.
But if it's not there, then they shouldn't be there. It's about the revenue you bring so that you get the income paid to you.
Now you're talking the same language with Tinas now.
Exactly.
Yeah. But the idea, the reason why I brought in the issue of equal pay is because people are actually taking advantage of this popularity to slide in these issues instead of celebrating the Matildas. It is time to celebrate and enjoy and embrace what they have, showed everyone. And hopefully the Socceroos follow suit in the next World Cup and go to the semi-finals or even to the finals. Hopefully.
Yeah. Look, as I said, the Matildas, they've raised the standard. Everyone was happy. There was, even for me, I even bought one of those yellow T-shirts because it was all over my eyes when I was walking around the South Bank area. So I saw the FIFA football stand and I had to buy the women's kit.
Suspect, eh?
Just say you had the yellow T-shirt. Why do you want to say you bought one?
Yeah, Matildas. I was disappointed that they didn't win the World Cup. It would have been beautiful. At least, as I said at the first start, the Lionesses. Congrats to them getting to the final. At least the Lionesses didn't win the World Cup. Remember last year when they won the Euros, how much the British press went berserk.
Stay on.
Anyway, before we move on, I think there was also something that took center stage in that World Cup when they won when Spain won the final. There was the controversy that sprung up. Spanish soccer president kisses one of the players on the lips in celebration. Obviously, he later apologized. But already the acting minister of sport of Spain, Miquel Iceta, had already said that it's unacceptable for officials to be kissing the players on the lips. What do you think? Possible backlash? Is this guy being sacked? What do you think?
Look, I think I will just be brief. We live in an outrage society. These guys were celebrating. Exactly. The lady doesn't have an issue with it. She never raised a complaint. We live in an outrage society. Mm-hmm. People pucker each up on the lips. Mm-hmm. I know there's the power dynamic. He's the boss. He's the senior. He's the leader. But if everyone is comfortable with that, and obviously he just didn't grab her head and kissed her. I've seen some of the footage. It was an embrace in celebration. What's the big deal?
I think more than anything, if it's not sexual, then it shouldn't be an issue. If the woman then felt the player that got kissed, if she felt like there was an issue, she could have raised whatever opinion. But I guess just like anything else, people will try to grab media attention. They want to be politically correct all the time, and try to take action where maybe action is not even needed. So I just found that to be quite interesting that,
Most people, they don't know the backstory to that. They're just taking it face value, and they don't even know the relationship, the friendship, between them. There could be, some good relationship or whatever that made him comfortable doing that.
Exactly. On such a platform, obviously. Or maybe he was just overwhelmed.
Yeah,
overjoyed.
It's just excitement. Look, unless the lady, we don't want to comment on her behalf. There's three gentlemen here. Unless she comes out explicitly and says, I have an issue.
Like
But I've seen on Twitter, I've seen some of the responses where she's said that, yeah, these things happen. Obviously, he has to apologize because of the power dynamic. We always look at the power dynamic. He's the president of the Football Association. But yeah, for me, I think I was having a conversation with someone else over the weekend that we've lost the ability to have fun. Just crack a joke.
You got to be politically correct all the time.
And you're scared, like, these it was females who were talking to say, hey, we miss that chase of a guy just coming just to flirt with us for 2 minutes, make us feel beautiful.
Now you're labeled a pervert, man.
Because
it depends. If she thinks you are attractive, you're not a pervert. But if she doesn't like you, then you are a pervert. So, but you can't tell before you get there.
Yeah, so that's what I was saying. That ability to conversate, to joke, it's really, that's why we said Amagentz, we are in an unfiltered place. Like, we saw at the start of the conversation, we're talking about how the Matildas were, and then we spoke about equal pay, and people up front that we don't believe that equal pay is right there for women's sport at the moment, unless they bring the revenue to match the men's sport.
Yeah.
If they bring the revenue to match the men's sport, the men's World Cup, good on them. Let them have equal pay. But if it's not the same, there's no right for equal pay. All right.
Alrighty.
Anything you want to add, gentlemen, before we move on Amagentz Podcast? That was a bit of a heated debate. Fantastic.
Awesome.
So we'll continue. Week 3 of the Premier League. We've already given you the fixtures. I think the Champions League draw will be happening soon in a couple of weeks. We'll know the Champions League draw. We'll bring that through to you. The NFL season will be starting soon. In the preseason games, we'll bring some of the feedback from the NFL, some of the matches. Of course, we'll talk about the great man Patrick Mahomes. We'll talk about Aaron Rodgers. And of course, we'll talk about the NBA. Is this LeBron's last season in the NBA? Or does he have another one? Who knows? So let's move on. All right, let's segue. Kenya's decision to move visa restrictions, right, sparks discussion about a borderless Africa. Kenya, all right? So the Kenyan president came out and says Kenya to freely open its gates to any business person of African descent. This was in the Business Insider Africa on the 1st of June 2023. And the first tagline, which I spoke about Kenya's decision to remove visa restrictions, sparks discussions about a borderless Africa. This was posted in Global Voices on the 30th of June 2023. My opinion is, why hasn't Africa done its own type of EU? Why do we have all these border restrictions? Trucks, logistics should just move freely from one country to another. People should just visit one country to another. Let's build the economic base. That Pan-Africanism starts by us opening the borders. Open the floor to you, gentlemen.
Yeah, I think it's a long story, this one, because we have to go back to what I enjoy talking about, imperialism and the neocolonialism. You find that those borders, they are there to restrict trade amongst African countries. And if we are not trading amongst each other, then it's easier for external, forces to come and destabilize our relationships because we are not already united as Africans. So with the Pan-African movement, the ideology is to have one Africa where there are no borders at all, of which there is always a first step towards a good move. So what Ruto is doing in Kenya is actually good. Some might argue that why not open for everyone? Why do you just open for businesses only? But this is the first step towards greatness, a great and united Africa. So if this pilot of business, is successful, then possibly they can open for everyone, no visa to go into Kenya, as long as you're an African citizen. which will improve trade. And I was watching, what's his name, Malema, the EFF leader, saying that even if they open borders, it doesn't mean people from Zimbabwe will flock into Kenya, escaping financial quagmires in Zimbabwe. People will remain in Zimbabwe, despite, the lucrative or the greener pastures in Kenya. You will find that even if there are open borders, he was giving an example of Limpopo and Gauteng, Johannesburg, that Limpopo is poor, but Johannesburg is well up, is an affluent, city or province. But some people are born in Limpopo, grew up in Limpopo. They don't have any visa that they need to get to Johannesburg, but they died in Limpopo. So people who can stay wherever they are. Open borders are for people to come, do trade, and go back to their respectable, places. So up with the open borders. Back to you, Captain P.
Yeah, look, as I said before we head off to Tina's, I'll refer back to the globalvoices.org article, and looking at some of the countries here, like Seychelles. Seychelles has got no visa for anyone for African descent. But most of the people who here are saying I'm going for a holiday in Seychelles are people traveling from the UK, America, Australia that I want to go to Seychelles. We don't know this information which is out there, that you can just go with your Zimbabwean passport. You don't need a visa. You're there in Seychelles. Your South African passport with your Kenyan passport. You're there. You're boosting the tourism. Benin doesn't need visa. And if you look on Google Maps, Benin has got a whole coastline, right, where there's big tourism which can be made there and big revenue for Benin. So I think this is the type of discussions where people can just start to drive. You've got your Zimbabwean passport, you've got your South African passport, you can do your drive all the way from Cape Town, that Cape to Cairo, which we've always spoken about. Yes, you can drive there, but you have to go through border control. You have to know what each country's border control is. But if you show your passport, there you go. You're right through. In Europe, they've got they where you can cross from Switzerland into Germany. You can cross from Portugal into France just using a motorway, right? All those things. We as Africa, if we start to do this, Africa goes to another level. Tinas, your thoughts?
Yeah, first and foremost, I think I just want to applaud Ruto. I think he seems like a very switched on guy. He seems like he has, a lot of initiative that he's trying to take on. Especially when it comes to the way he's challenging the normal diplomacy in Africa, where we were more of recipients, even though we own the resources, but still we're just recipients of aid. And he's trying to challenge that, and I think he's really spoken up on issues that are concerning African countries. He's speaking about African factories. He's speaking about us being able to consume our own products. Look, awesome. But when it comes to this issue, again, I applaud him. Awesome. But I think we have a page to take from the EU. And I think this initiative, if I could say first, this initiative we need it at a point where when African countries are balanced economies, so that we try and prevent that movement of people. Because look at what happened in the EU. As soon as the borders are open, everybody went to the UK. So as much as Malema could say what he's saying, we have a case study that everybody has seen. And look at what has happened to the UK. They exited. It was Brexit because the economy just couldn't take it. And, there's a very big page to take out of that book. And I just feel like that is a good initiative. It is not a right now sort of initiative. Let's fix other issues first and foremost. Let's fix how the world views Africa. Let's fix how the world is willing to trade with Africa. And then once our economies are stable enough, then let's open the borders. We also have other issues like terrorism that are happening, the Islamists and all these people. Let's deal with that before we start opening borders and saying, yes.
Yes.
Okay, can I
agree.
respond on the terms of the EU?
Yeah.
Look, full disclaimer, I think you boys know, you gents know, I'm a liberal conservative supporter. But that whole Brexit and all that whole EU, that's a big red herring, right?
Yeah.
The UK never went over 100 million people, right?
But they have.
But France's migration, right?
Yeah.
Most of its migrational increase came from refugees coming by boat from African countries, not through EU countries.
Mostly French-speaking countries.
Germany never had a big influx, right? That was just a red herring, and I'm not a Labour supporter.
No, but
across the aisle, whether it's in the UK, if I was even living in the UK, I wouldn't vote Labour.
Germany took on a lot of Muslims, though.
Yeah, they
People
took
from Iraq.
Yeah, they took on, but that's not through EU. No one from Poland moved, and they all said we're leaving Poland, we're leaving Romania. Yes, some moved. Of course, some moved. That happens. Migration will always happen in some form. But let's be really honest. Has Brexit really benefited the United Kingdom? That was a Boris Johnson type of Trumpian move, because there was that Trumpian movement about, us. And of course, again, another disclaimer, Trump, I'll defend him to a certain extent. I will not just be against Trump like all the mad people out there on social media. But again, we need to be honest that if the AU opens itself up and starts to do internal trade, right? Getting that uranium from Niger coming down to Southern Africa, powering electricity, getting the minerals from DRC, not the minerals leaving DRC on planes to go to support Belgium and France, but coming to sustain.
Okay. So I think the point we're making here is free trade first and foremost.
Free trade.
Yes.
Before we open up borders for actual people to be moving around.
Yes, free trade.
Yes.
What we're talking about is free trade.
Yeah.
Because what we want to do is about free trade. If we start with free trade and then we move to what Joe alluded last week about governance, the correct governance of the free trade. Exactly. We're not saying, because if we say free trade, we know some of our unfortunate African leaders who want to take everything from themselves.
Yeah.
If it's
that's
free
why I said
trade,
stabilize our economies.
Then it becomes free trade. That's why Ruto started with business opportunity. He didn't say population. He said business. So if you want to come and start your business, right, of African, you've gotten your idea, which you've seen in Brisbane, in Perth, in Sydney, right? And you fly to Kenya, you say, I'm of African descent. This is what I want to establish. Or we can establish our own, for example, African or AU Amazon, right?
But gentlemen, this is being said visa-less, visa-free, bilateral visa-free entry.
Yes.
Are we talking about the same thing here?
We are talking of the same thing, but if you read into the article, it's for business purposes.
Okay.
So you find your reason to visit the country has to be
business. It's got to be business. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
We're not talking about the trade of people just migrating.
Because they know if it's business, I'm coming into Kenya to take my car from Nairobi or to take cars from Nairobi. That's a business visa. That's a business trip. I'm bringing in business into Kenya.
Yeah.
I'm going to be using their hotels and hospitality facilities. I'm bringing in revenue for them.
I think it's like I said earlier, I think I applaud him for that. He's really trying to take that initiative. I think a lot of African leaders have been afraid to speak after Muammar Gaddafi, after the likes of Robert Mugabe were used as examples. But I think that's the direction that Africa needs to take. They need to start, inching away from the sort of trade that only supports imperialism, as you would love to speak on, Joe. But we have got to grow. We've got to grow as our own. After all, we own most of the things that the world needs.
Yeah.
But how come we do not benefit the most?
Yeah.
Like if you read to the business Insider Africa, it says that by eliminating trade restrictions, and improving transportation systems, Kenya aims to promote the free flow of products, reduce prices, and make intra-African commerce more profitable.
Yep.
That's the vision, intra-African commerce, right? Like we look at that. If you look at that 4-point between, is it Zimbabwe, Zambia, Botswana, is it Namibia?
Yes.
That there should be a 4-bridge there.
Yes.
Now. By now, there should be
a spaghetti bridge.
A spaghetti bridge or a T-junction bridge, whatever you want to call it, where someone can cross from Zimbabwe straight
into the Kazungula border.
No.
Where is that Kazungula?
Hang on.
I think
let's go to Dr. Google. Hey, Dr.
Because I remember there was talk that hey, who's that typing?
You guys type gently.
Keyboard warrior.
We've got our keyboard warrior. I think it's Joe Retinas, eh?
I'm not typing.
It's called Kazungula. You're right, Tinas.
So here's the thing. Zambia and Botswana collectively own the bridge. I made to understand that Zimbabwe was part of it, but then they eventually pulled out. Even though there were then rumors that they later on went back into the deal, but I don't know. Google says Botswana and Zambia collectively, according to Africa Business, which was, it's funded by toll fees and administered by Kazungula Bridge Authority, which was created to operate and maintain the infrastructure on behalf of the two nations.
Yeah,
it's between two nations.
It's only between Zambia and Zimbabwe.
Zambia and Botswana.
The bridge.
Look, I think maybe we need to do a bit more research on this. We can touch on this in the later episodes, because another on Wikipedia, we all know, it says Kazungula. At Kazungula, the territories of 4 countries, Zambia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, and Namibia, come close to meeting at a quadrupoint. So, like you're saying, we all know that those countries have got share borders at that point. And I'm not really sure where I'm ashamed to say, I'm not really sure where that bridge comes in, but yeah.
So on CNN.com, I'm shocked my computer is going on CNN.com, but because of this, we'll accept it. The Kazungula Bridge is between Zambia and Botswana. Zimbabwe doesn't have a connection point.
Yes.
Of that. Namibia doesn't have a connection point. So it's just going straight over the Zambezi River, skipping Zimbabwe from Zambia to Botswana. Right? There, as I'm saying, that there should have been a crossing point, or whatever you can call it. Is it here in Australia we call it a merge or a diversion? From the middle point, it goes into Zimbabwe. It goes into Namibia. If you're crossing from Zimbabwe, you can go underneath into Namibia, right? You can turn left into Botswana. You can turn right into Zambia. This is the infrastructure which we need to build, which builds trade between all countries.
I'm looking at the picture here.
At the CNN, man.
And it clearly shows the border comes from one place to the next. There's no, like you're saying, there's no 4-way interchange that is, taking you either to...
Exactly, that's the word I was looking for. 4-way interchange.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So, look, Ruto has started a good thing. I believe in it. We believe in an AU for Africa, where we start our own trade. It's time for us to do our own internal trade. Move things from the north all the way down to the south.
Yeah.
All right? Things from the south all the way to the north. But exporting to Europe, exporting to China, exporting to Russia is secondary until we've finished our orders for the AU, and AU becomes stronger.
Yeah, and I think in other episodes we could actually look into. This is just me thinking forward. we could even just look into having an episode that would touch on what African countries offer what for our listeners and viewers.
Yeah.
So that we can even further discuss this issue and just make it make sense.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
We're staying in the homeland, in the motherland, in Africa. Let's talk about Niger and ECOWAS.
Yeah.
So in the last 13 hours, Yahoo News put an article out there saying West Africa's ECOWAS rejects Niger's junta's proposed 3-year delay for an election. So they're calling them the military junta. Some may call them a freedom revolution.
Mm-hmm.
ECOWAS has rejected the military leader's proposal to have a 3-year delay on elections. I'm leaning more to the side of ECOWAS on this one. I don't think you need 3 years to have an election. You were not elected by the people. You've taken over via a coup. Maybe 6 months or 12 months, then you have an election. Why wait for 3 years? What do you want to do in a 3-year span, which you can't prove to the people? Whether you, as a military leader, you said, no, I've done my part in the military. I want to move into politics. Give me the opportunity to be your president. I'm leaning on the side of ECOWAS on this one. Of course, I do have my misconceptions about ECOWAS because ECOWAS is, for a lack of a better term, it's a bit of a bitch for France.
And the other say puppet
for the West.
Look, we're an adult channel here, so people can have a puppet or at the moment. So, but however, on this stance, a 3-year delay for an election. Joe, Tinas, let's open it up on the Niger discussion.
I think I'm gonna be, leaning towards the military to say the 3 years one will make much more sense because there is a lot of, confusion, a lot of forces that are pulling in Niger. Niger is quite significant geopolitical country and it needs to be more stable before it's handed over to a civilian leader. Because at the moment, like you said, ECOWAS is being, controlled by its puppeteers and it's putting so much force, and a civilian leader will not be able to stand against ECOWAS before the masters come in and take over. Because if they are quick to put a civilian leader, that person can be blackmailed, can be hoodwinked politically by France, US. We need a military, presence in the political, space in Niger at the moment.
Yeah, but 3 years is not constitutional. It's not. The people, yes, have celebrated.
Whose constitution?
Okay. Can I finish?
Yes.
People have celebrated with the military, right?
Yes.
We use the example of Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe had a coup in 2017. An election was held within 12 months in 2018.
Yes.
Whether you may say the election was free and fair, that's another debate.
Yes.
But what we are saying is that once you have a coup, within 6 to 12 months,
yes,
an election must be held.
Who is defining that constitution?
No. Let's not talk about the constitution. Let's not talk about who's defined. Obviously, you can say the constitution is a Western construct, right? That's what you are trying to allude to.
Because it's not working in that situation because this country has been torn to pieces.
Yes, you may say you're saying that it is a Western construct, but what we are saying is that yes, it may be a Western construct. However, it gives the voice to the people. So if it is a free and fair election, the military can find their own civilian who they believe they can puppeteer from their own end. But to wait 3 years, this is, to me, as I said, I think I used word this to refer ECOWAS and its Western allies. You're more politically correct about being puppeteers or puppets, right? 3 years is too long to have an election. Within 12 months, election should be held in Niger. The best candidate to say, this is what I'm doing. If they want to have a runoff with the president who was ousted by the coup, if the president has learned his lessons, then let's come and have a battle of ideas. Tinas, go.
Okay, so why is Niger so important? Politically, it has been seen as an example of a relatively democratic stability in recent years, while its neighbors, Burkina Faso and Mali, had already succumbed to military coups. Politically, strategically, it hosts French and US military bases and is seen as a key partner to fight Islamic insurgency. Economically, it is rich in uranium, it is rich in gold. It produces 7% of all global supplies of uranium. So just a snippet of why this country is very important that we're talking about. ECOWAS, having been said, has not had the very best of histories when it comes to doing good.
Just if their reputation is not good.
Exactly. Just as the AU, just as even ECAS, there's the equivalent of ECOWAS, there's ECAS and there's also SADC. All of these organizations have not really done well when it comes to, doing the right thing for African countries, making the right decisions, and just having that overall lookout for the African interest. Why is this? Is because the AU itself was not the design of African countries. It was something that was brought on by America and the West for them to be able to have a hand in how Africa, has its own affairs and sits upon itself, basically. That example alone will show you that the West always wants to have a hand in how Africans do what they do. I think even the UN is a very good example again of how they want to do that. ECOWAS is not there for the good of Niger.
Yes.
Because if they were there for the good of Niger, they would have listened to what we are talking about. That's why is Niger such a very important country to the West, including countries like France and the United States. Why is it so important? And having said that, why is it that once these countries have taken reign over these countries economically, what has the normal populace, what are they going through? What is happening in that country? Like, apart from them having uranium and having gold, they're raised among one of the poorest countries. The people are starving, but they have all of that. So I think we just need to look at, more importantly, what ECOWAS is, and also at the same time politically also look at what Mali or Niger are trying to achieve by not following what ECOWAS wants to be done.
Good points, Tinas. As I said, in terms of Niger, particularly with the point which you've raised about 7% of the world's uranium. Yeah, people might snigger, say, 7%, 7% is
global. That's a lot of
a significant amount. And if France, Germany, who have been particularly outspoken, most of their energy generation is from nuclear energy. And what is nuclear energy? Is uranium. So a place like Niger is just what can we say? France and Germany are pickpocketing, this free uranium, because again, Niger still uses the francs. I didn't know that.
If I want to add on to that, okay. So one of the things that we haven't spoken about is, I was also hearing one of these podcasts that apparently, since the Nord Stream pipeline that was coming from Russia, going to some of these European countries, since it was blown up, the European countries and the West strategized to have Nigeria supply natural gas through, amongst other countries, Niger. Yeah. And Niger is so central, like we always said, it's so central to the Sahel region, that they cannot go past divert the pipe round Niger. And one of the key issues, I think, when we heard France making a lot of key threats was because they were now saying, no, you're not going to put your pipe through our country. That's not going to happen. And you see, with that, again, we also have to consider that is part of the reasons why a country like Niger right now is very, very important to the whole debate.
Yeah. So I'm coming back to that issue of military rule. You see, even Burkina Faso, Traore has been there for almost a year now. And it's going very well for the Burkinabe.
Yeah.
So what's wrong with Niger? Sankara at the time was a military ruler. He was there for years. Muammar Gaddafi was a general. He was there for decades, and Libya was livable. Despite some of the political victims.
Can I come back to that point, right? Okay, you've given the examples of Gaddafi and President Ibrahim Traore.
Yes.
So what we are saying is that if the military or a particular general or a particular colonel wants to get into the political space, right?
Yes.
Go and talk about your manifesto. Talk about your vision for Niger, right? Now, you talk about, you entered the service of the government in the military to protect and serve the people, right? You've taken out a leader who you're saying is not protecting the people's interest.
Yes.
Right? So you've done your part as a military leader.
Yes.
So after 12 months, you say, right, we've taken out this individual who has not protected the rights and the benefits of the people of Niger or whatever ex-country.
Yes.
Right? Let's have an election. This political candidate, they are saying they will protect the interests.
Yes.
Or maybe the former president is saying, I've learned my lesson. The relations I try to have with X country, Y country, Z country, yellow country, blue country, it has not benefited us. I will bring, this A, B, C, D, E, F, G as my manifesto and policy. Your job as the military leader is to protect and serve the people. You've done that. After 12 months, step away or say, I resign and I want to go into the political field.
Yeah. So what's wrong with them being there for 3 years?
Exactly.
One thing.
That role is transition. And transition can take.
There's no transition which takes 3 years, generally.
No, not for anything that has already been.
There's no transition. There's no transition.
Let's not.
There's pending invasion. There's pending invasion from left, right, center. We need a military strategist to protect the nation.
Yeah. What's the job of the military? They can advise the civilian president to say, this is our strategy, Mr. President.
But if the president is living, president has
Captain P, wait for Tinas to say something. We haven't heard it.
I was looking at one of the presidents from one of these ECOWAS countries, actually, before we came online, who was caught trying to run away from his country. He had, suitcases of money. I actually want us to look for this, and maybe we can put this up on one of our sites, either on Twitter or whatever you. We'll put this video up. And this guy was trying to run away from the country, and he had suitcases full of francs. This is French, whatever currency is called. This is what is happening in those countries, that these guys are being paid ridiculous amount of money for making, decisions that benefit those countries. So in this case, when the military comes in, the military doesn't take money from anyone. They rule on based on a structure, and anyone who's caught outside of that, is going to be punished.
Guys,
no.
Guys, let's not live in a utopia. These military dictators, right? Okay, military people end up becoming the worse dictators than a politician. All right, let's look at Idi Amin. All right, yes, he came here. The people say that he's coming to liberate the people of Uganda. What ended up happening in Uganda under Idi Amin? I see you guys are tongue-tied, eh? I see you guys are tongue-tied.
I'm not. I actually want to say something.
Yeah.
You know, again, I was watching a video about somebody, and again, I'll try and unveil this video for you guys. When somebody was going around and they were speaking, and they were going around the country and looking at the decay and the dilapidation. And do you know that there was a hospital, one of the main hospitals that was there, that during Idi Amin was where all the doctors from that area were staying. They were housed there. They free housing, free everything. And all they had to do was go to work, get paid, and treat people. They didn't have to worry about housing. They didn't have to worry about transporting. Right now, do you know what happened to that place? It's owned by an Indian. And then they moved on to another place. Again, something that during Idi Amin's time was something that was being used to help people. But now, again, it's owned by the Indian community. Again, so I really want to, I think I'm going to try and bring this up again so that it has, a point of reference. And what we're basically saying, as much as those guys had so much of hate towards them, or so much of things that they did, but they did that in the good of the African people at large. So as much as you could argue and say these military juntas have got potential to become even worse, but they also do have African interests at heart.
Yes.
Why do you want to run a pipeline through a country?
They can have African interests at heart, but let us not put lipstick on a crocodile, please. Let's not put lipsticks on a crocodile. Some of these guys are extreme aggressors. If you are a military general, right? You've done your 12 months.
Captain B.
You've done your 12 months. You've stabilized the country. Have a free and fair election.
Captain B. How many African countries process uranium? Do you know?
I don't have the stats in front of me.
Okay, but if you were to guess, I'm sure there's none. If you were to guess,
no,
I think
not even. No. They don't process it.
They don't process it.
There's a difference between mining and processing it. We're talking about processing it.
Nobody processes it.
In Africa, there's no one processes mining. Right. Why do you think that is?
Because
the price that you buy uranium ore at, and the price that you buy the processed product is extremely on opposite ends. Very cheap, very expensive.
We all know that if you get your ore versus processed, is always going to be expensive.
And our civilian leaders enabling that.
Exactly. Let's give an example of this. This pipeline. This pipeline. Let's give an example of this pipeline. This pipeline is running across straight into the country from south to the north. Yes. Do you think that there's no need for natural gas in Chad or in Niger? Sorry. Do you think there's no need for it? Do you think that whole country does not need any sort of benefit from a pipeline that could be passing through its country? They do. Yes. But why is it that they have military personnel in the country ready to protect that interest for them? It's because they don't want anyone else to mess around with that, even the people of that country.
We've agreed about the protection of the military interest in protecting the interests of the country. We've all said that the military, that's the job of the military.
Now you're speaking softly. I want you to speak with...
No. I'm not speaking softly. That is the role of the military, to protect the interests of the country.
The people, yes. And ECOWAS is not going to do that.
No, ECOWAS is not going to do that. And we've said that. No one has disputed that. Yeah. What I am saying is that you have protected the interests of the people, right?
Yes.
Number one.
Yes.
Number two, right? You've protected them. Number two, as the military, you were not voted in. You were appointed. So your role is, we've protected the interests. We felt, as the military, we will not agree with President X, right? We want elections to be held. If President X.2, his vice president, wants to campaign versus candidate Y, whose a pan-Africanist, a anti-imperialist, then the people will vote.
Yes.
But
Everything has to go back to the people.
It has to go back to the
Who said
people.
a year is good enough time frame for that to happen?
Thank you, Tina.
That's my opinion.
Exactly.
That is my opinion. That a year is a good timeline, because in a year you can step up. These guys are not.
Politics a year. That's why most governments are given 4 to 5 years for any sort of change to happen.
Let me respond.
Time frame to.
Let me respond. These guys are not qualified financial controllers. These guys are not qualified health officials. These guys.
Come on. The military has people who do that.
Everyone in that area.
The military
every faculty. Yes, they do have doctors. They do have, accounting experts.
What we are talking about, we want the people to vote for individuals.
Granted.
The quicker you get to that point, the better. 3 years.
The better to who, though?
These guys want to plunder.
And use.
No, not to better. For the people. The people.
At the end of the day, who's not plundering? France is plundering. They're plundering how many
50%
countries? How many? They're plundering. Literally. They have money of over 8 countries running through their economy. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Who is not plundering? You're having those guys plunder because, you know what, if you 100 million, they'll say, 100 million is a lot of money. Those guys want billions, they want trillions out of your country with nothing coming back to you. So, I don't know.
No. We are better off with military rule. So France and the US cannot benefit from our resources without us getting back any benefit from those resources. You can take over, Captain.
You can
wrap it up.
No. I just need to counterattack there. You can't say we need military rule, because military rule is not the choice of the people.
Understood. But at this stage,
we need the choice of the people.
Right. So coming back to the choice of the people, I completely agree with all that. But the issue is the culture within the politics in Niger has been corrupted to the core, where you find that the Western countries, they can actually infiltrate civilian political atmosphere with ease. That's why the military is needed to clear out the scum. Once the culture is changed within the political system in Niger, then the military will be ready to hand over, no matter how long it takes, as long as it is for the people. If it takes 3 years, yes. If it takes 5 years, yes. Until they clear out the scum and the culture in politics is uncorruptible by the West, then I would say I'll go for what people are voting for. But at the moment, people are, on the side of the military. They are going with the military. They are vying for what the military is doing.
And no one has disputed that. And that can be done for another 6 to 12 months. The military needs to step back and go into military roles.
Yes.
That is my opinion. And you gentlemen said
3 years. Good.
3 years. Fantastic. That was a bit of a heated discussion there. We'll continue with the Niger. I think we promised that from episode 2, where we've been monitoring it. We wanted to come back with full facts, more research, and we'll continue to research this. We're very interested in the African geopolitics at Amagentz Podcast. As we know, we are all Pan-Africanists here in different forms and different ways. We may want it in to arrive in a certain point in different ways. So before we wrap up, it was a fun Amagentz Podcast, from the Premier League to the Women's World Cup to Kenya's opening of borders for business to the Niger ECOWAS discussions. Quick predictions at the time of the recording. The election in Zimbabwe is, on our end, is 1 day to go. By the time we publish it, we may be in the middle of results. But a quick prediction around the table. Quick thoughts. Tinas, how do you think the election will go in Zimbabwe?
I think it still feels ZANU-PF has an upper hand. It doesn't obviously, follow what the people want, but I think they still have an upper hand in the way they've been, running things, the way they've used state agencies to their advantage. So basically, they still have an upper hand, and I think they will have a slim lead over CCC. Obviously, CCC has organic votes. ZANU-PF does not have organic votes. They're passing people a lot of victimization going on. So I wouldn't really call them organic votes, but CCC with organic votes will probably, fall short. So we'll see how it goes. All the best to everybody. And yeah.
Wow, what a politically correct answer. So you're just trying to say ZANU-PF is just going to scheme its way to a victory?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it looks like that because they've got the tools, apparatus, and the experience.
And unfortunately, you've already started. We saw on Twitter the information secretary already saying that using Ziambe, the minister, is it the Minister of Defense, saying that people were going to be camped at polling stations. They are not allowed there. People are using illegal jammers. So they've already started their rhetoric, trying to intimidate people with the security apparatus. But in terms of the population's desire, from what we've seen on viewers' mail, viewer correspondence, we didn't want to have another Zimbabwean debate tonight. But from all the letters, all the correspondence we've seen, people want change. People just want to have a taste of change, to see that in the country there can be change. If people are not happy with Triple C, 5 years later they can bring back the current ruling party. But people just want a bit of difference. 43 years, infrastructure is dilapidated. Road networks is not working. We don't have a train system. We have, for lack of a better term, public transport. We've got for those who don't know it, we've got a mushika system where it's just old little scrawny cars picking up people. I think people have shown the sentiment of change. But as I said, we hope for the right result for the country, and we wish all the best to all the candidates.
A very good telltale signs of how things have changed is, back in the day, you'd never see people walking away from a Mugabe rally. Never. But then now we see scores of people, and this is happening across the country, scores of people walking away mid-speech of the president. And not only does it look bad on him, but, I think it's also just a telltale signs that, people are not really, occupied with what he's really trying to achieve. They're really just looking forward to themselves. They're being forced onto buses. How can you have a rally consistently having 500 people, 500 buses coming to the rally? What is the point? Yep. Why are you bringing people from Matildas to rallies in Mashonaland?
Yeah, so it's called image management.
Yeah. Look, people are hungry. People are happy to come in. I heard apparently some of these ruling party rallies, they're getting chicken in, free meals.
Chicken slicer.
People are hungry. We saw yesterday the last official rally, which they are supposed to have as per the gazetted legislation at the Freedom Square in Harare for the opposition. There's lots of people, and there was no free donation of food. People were just going there. Yeah, personal perspective, it's time for a change. We, as I said last week, we appreciate everything from Mugabe, Tongogara, Chitepo. You can list all the cadres who were in the liberation struggle. Joshua Mkomo, Muzenda, Zobo, all them, we can list them. We never trivialize what they did for us to be on this pedestal where we can eloquently speak, where we can research, where we can learn, when we can do things. It was their liberation struggle. They fought for us. But we're saying to them, gentlemen, after 43 years, go and enjoy your retirement. Go and enjoy your lives with your families, your grandkids. Go and play around.
And,
Give someone else the opportunity. Thank you so much.
I just wanted to touch on sorry.
Sorry. Yeah.
I just wanted to touch on, we were talking about the issue of numbers, people being buzzed in. I just feel like it's a very good example for them to justify numbers eventually if those numbers are played with. I'm not accusing them of having to do that, but I think we have always seen that is always the accusation that they've done. And looking into it, it's very easy for somebody to say, no, look, man, what do you mean? We didn't go look at the number of people that came to our rally. But most of those people are buzzed in from there, And as soon as those people hear that their bus is leaving, they all run away because they're not
from that area.
From there. Most of those people don't even have money to, if they miss the bus, to go back home. They don't have money to buy themselves a meal if something happens. So it's just an excuse for them to be able to justify their numbers. And, I think the opposition or the people supporting the opposition have done a very good job of trying to look into that,
and exploiting
it. Yeah.
So has anyone had a chance to look at the voters' roll?
I have not, to be honest.
Yeah, because on Voice of Africa, Zimbabwe, they're saying that all the contestants were given the voters' roll. The candidates have been given the voters' roll.
Is that true, though?
So I don't know how far true it is, but we're looking at Voice of Africa, Zimbabwe, which is one of those, outlets that sometimes,
Fierce.
Yeah, look, let's see how it goes. I think the candidates are, as of today in Zimbabwe, at the time of our recording, is the 22nd around 1 p.m. They're not allowed to campaign as per the legislation. So let's, hope for peace. Let's hope for the right result. That's all we can do. But after 43 years, from my perspective, Captain P, as the host of Amagentz Podcast, and my fellow co-hosts, my brothers, the fellow pioneers of Amagentz Podcast, let's have a go at another party. The ruling party has done a lot for us. Liberation struggle, land reform, those are all appreciative gestures. But in other aspects, I think it's time for the people to experience something different. We've got people who were born 20 years ago who've never experienced a good Zimbabwe. Some of us experienced. We experienced a good Zimbabwe. Some have never experienced a good Zimbabwe. So I think it's time for us to have a change for that. So thank you so much, gentlemen. It's been a robust discussion this week. This is what Amagentz brings to you: robust, informative, and sometimes speculative information. Particularly, we hear these sources of, I've seen this on Instagram, I've seen this on Wikipedia. We need reliable sources, yeah.
like we said, we're going to provide the videos.
No. Thank you so much, Tinas. Thank you so much, Joe. Appreciate it. Thank you for another beautiful session. Amagentz Podcast will be back next week for another discussion. This time we'll be focusing on the results of the Zim election. We might even have a special episode this week. We might have 2 for the price of 1 for this week in August 2023. We're looking at the Zimbabwean election, the results, just a quick episode recap, and we discuss and we have a chat. So everyone have a good week and stay tuned to Amagentz Podcast. Thank you so much.